Deer are widely distributed with indigenous representative in all continents except Antarctica. Though Africa has only one native deer, the Barbary stage, a subspecies of red deer that is confined to the Atlas Mountains in the northwest of the continent. Another extinct species of deer, Megaceridus algericus, was present in North Africa until 6,000 years ago. Deer is a hoofed ruminant mammal of the family Cervidae. The two main groups of deer are the Cervinae, including muntjac, red deer, and fallow deer, and including reindeer, white-tailed deer, roe deer, and moose. Male deer of all species except the water deer, as well as female reindeer, grow and shed new antlers each year. In this, they differ from permanently horned antelope, which are part of a different family within the same order of even-toed ungulate. The musk deer of Asia and chevrotins of tropical Africans and Asian forests are separate families that are also in the ruminant clade Ruminantia. They are not especially closely related to Cervidae. Deer appears in art from Paleolithic cave paintings onwards, and they have played a role in mythology, religion, and literature throughout history, as well as in a heraldry such as red deer that appears in the coat of arms of Ireland. Their economic importance includes the use of their meat as venison, their skins as soft, strong buckskin, and their antlers as handles for knives. Deer hunting has been a popular activity since the Middle Ages and remains a resource for many families today. The word deer was originally broad in meaning, becoming more specific with time. Old English deor and Middle English deer meant a wild animal of any kind. Cognates of Old English deor in other dead Germanic language have the general sense of animal. For many types of deer in modern English usage, the male is a buck and the female a doe, but the terms vary with dialect and according to the size of the species. The male red deer is a stage, while for other large species the male is a bull, the female a cow. As in cattle in older usage, the male of any species is a hart, especially if over 5 years old, and the female is a hind, especially if 3 or more years old. The young of small species is a fawn and a large species a calf. A very small young may be a kid. A castrated male is a heavier. A group of any species is a herd. The adjective of relation is curvine, like the family name Cervidae. This is from Latin. So, if we will talk about the deer, deer lives in a variety of biomes, ranging from tundra to the tropical rainforest. While often associated with forest, many deer are ecotone species that live in transitional areas between forests and thickest and savanna. The majority of large deer species inhabit temperature mixed deciduous forest, mountain mixed coniferous forest, tropical season dry forest, and savanna habitats around the world. Present-day fallow deer populations in Europe are a result of historic man-made introduction of this species. first to the Mediterranean regions of Europe, then eventually to the rest of Europe. They were initially park animal that later escaped and established themselves in the wild. Historically, Europe deer species shared their deciduous forest habitat with other herbivores, such as the extinct tarpan forest horse and forest ox and the endangered wisent European bison. Good places to see deer in Europe include the Scottish Highlands. As a result of acclimatization, society releases in the 19th century, Australia has 6 introduced species of deer that have established sustainable wild population. They are fallow deer, red deer, sambar hog deer, rusa, and cheetal red deer were introduced into New Zealand in 1851 from English and Scottish stock. Many have been domesticated in deer farms since the late 1960s and are common farm animals there now. 7 other species of deer were introduced into New Zealand, but none are as widespread as red deer. Deer constitute the second most diverse family of Artiodactyla after bovids. Though of a similar build, deer are strongly distinguished from antelopes by their antlers, which are temporary and regularly regrown, unlike the permanent horns of bovids. Antlers. All male deer possess antlers with the exception of the water deer, in which males have long tusk-like canines that reach below the lower jaw. Females generally lack antlers, though female reindeer bear antlers smaller and less branched than those of the males. If we will talk about the teeth, most deer bear 32 teeth. They have 32 teeth. The correspondence dental formula is 33 or 32, 31. And they may retain their upper canines and thus have 34 teeth dental formula. The Chinese water deer, tough deer, and have enlarged upper canine teeth forming sharp tusks, while other species often lack upper canines altogether. The cheek teeth of deer have crescent ridges of enamel which enable them to grind a wide variety of vegetation. The teeth of deer are adapted to feeding on vegetation, and like other ruminants, they lack upper incisors, instead having a tough pad at the front of their upper jaw. If we will talk about the food, about the diet of the deer, so primarily deer, they eat grasses, sedges, forbs, shrubs, trees. Secondly, on the lichens in northern latitudes during winter, they have small, unspecialized stomachs by ruminant standards and high nutrition requirements rather than eating and digesting vast quantities of low-grade fibrous food as, for example, sheep and cattle do. Deer select easily digestible shoots, young leaves, fresh grasses, soft twigs, fruit, fungi, and lichens. The low-fibered food, after mineral fermentation and shredding, passes rapidly through the alimentary canal. The deer require a large amount of minerals such as calcium and phosphate in order to support antler growth, and this further necessitates a nutrient-rich diet. There are some reports of deer engaging in carnivorous activities such as eating dead alewives along lake shores. On predating the nests of northern bobwhites. So nearly all cervidae are so-called uniparental species. The young known in most species and fawn are only cared for by the mother, most often called a doe. A doe generally has one or two fawn at a time. So, if we will talk about the diseases of deer, in some areas of the UK, deer, especially fallow deer, due to their gregarious behavior, have been implicated as a possible reservoir for transmission of bovine tuberculosis, a disease which in the UK is in 2005 cost 90 million in attempts of eradicate. In New Zealand, deer are thought to be important as vectors picking up. So where brush tail possums are infected and transferring it to previously uninfected possums when their carcasses are scavenged elsewhere. Michigan outbreak to bovine tuberculosis, which remains a significant barrier to the US nationwide eradication of the disease in livestock. So deer are believed to have evolved from antlerless tusked ancestors that resembled modern duikers and diminutive deer in the early Eocene and gradually developed into the first antlers cervidae. So eventually, with the development of antlers, the tusks as well as the upper incisors disappeared. Thus, evolution of deer took nearly 30 million years. Biologists suggest evolution to have occurred in stages. There are not many prominent fossils to trace this evolution, but only fragments of skeletons and antlers that might be easily confused with the false antlers of non-curved species. So, if we will talk about their classification, deer constitute the Cervidae. This family was first described by German zoologist George Goldfuss in Handbuch Zoology 1820. Three subfamilies were recognized. Other attempts at the classification of deer have been based on morphological and genetic differences. The Anglo-Irish naturalist Victor Brooke suggested in 1878 that deer could be bifurcated into two classes according to the features of the second and fifth metacarpal bones of their forelimbs. He treated the musk deer as a served, placing it under telemetacarpalia, while the telemetacarpal deer showed only those elements located far from the joint. The plesiometacarpal deer retained the elements closer to the joint as well. Differentiation on the basis of diploid number of chromosomes in the late 20th century has been flawed by several inconsistencies. In 1987, the zoologists Colin Groves and Peter Grubb identified three subfamilies: Cervinae, Hydropotinae, and Odocolinae. They noted that the hydropotins lack antlers and the other two subfamilies differ in their skeleton morphology. They reverted from this classification in 2000. External relationships. Until 2003, it was understood that the family musk deer was sister to Cervidae. Then a phylogenetic study by Alexander of National Museum of Natural History, France, the colleagues based on mitochondrial and nuclear analysis revealed that Moschidae and Bovidae form a clade sister to Cervidae. According to the study, Cervidae diverged from the Bovidae Moschidae clade 27 to 28 million years ago. In 2006, phylogenetic study of the internal relationships in Cervidae by Clement Gilbert and colleague divided the family into two major clades, Capreolinae, telemetacarpal or New World deer, and Cervinae. Studies in the late 20th century suggests a similar bifurcation in the family. This, as well as previous studies, support monophyly in Cervinae, while Capreolinae appears paraphyletic. The 2006 study identified two lineages in Cervinae. Cervinae and Montinae Caprillinae featured three lineages. Deer were an important source of food for early hominids. In China, Homo erectus fed upon the Sika deer, while the red deer was hunted in Germany. In the Upper Paleolithic, the reindeer was the staple food for Cro-Magnon people, while the cave painting at Les Castres in southwestern France includes some 90 images of stacks. In China, deer continued to be a main source of food for millennia, even after people began farming. And it is possible that Sika and other deer benefited from the frequently abundant field sites. Deer has had a central role in the ancient art, culture, and mythology of the Hittites, the ancient Egyptians, the Celts, the ancient Greeks, the Asians, and several others. For instance, the stag hunt mosaic of ancient Pella under the kingdom of Macedonia, 4th century, possibly depicts Alexander the Great hunting a deer with Hephaestion. In Japanese Shintoism, the Sika deer is believed to be a messenger to the gods. In China, deer are associated with great medicinal significance. Deer penis is thought by some in China to have aphrodisiac properties. Spotted deer are believed in China to accompany the god of longevity. Deer was the principal sacrificial animal for the Hucal Indians of Mexico. The common male first name Oscar is taken from the Irish language, which it is derived from two elements. The first, os mean deer. The second element, cara mean friend. The name is borne by a famous hero of Irish mythology, Oscar, grandson of Fionn Mac. So deer have been an integral part of fabulous and other literary works since the inception of writing. Stages were used as symbol in the later Sumerian writing. For instance, the boat of Sumerian god Enki is named the stage of Asbu. There are several mentions of the animal in the Rig Veda as well as the Bible. In the Indian epic, Ramayana, Sita is lured by the gold deer which Rama tries to catch. In the absence of both Rama and Lakshman, Ravana kidnaps Sita. May of the illogical as fables such as the stag at the pool. So deer have long had economic significance to humans. Deer meat, known as venison, is highly nutritious due to the inherently wild nature and diet of deer. Venison is most often obtained through deer hunting. In the United States, it is produced in small amounts compared to beef, but still represents a significant trade. Deer hunting is a popular activity in the US that can provide the hunter family with high quality meat and generates revenue for states and the federal government from the sales of licenses, permits, and tags. The 2006 survey by the US Fish and Wildlife Service estimates that license sales generate approximately 700 million annually. This revenue generally goes to support conservation efforts in the states where the licenses are purchased. Overall, the US Fish and Wildlife Services estimates that big game hunting for deer and elk generates approximately 11.8 billion annually in hunting related travel, equipment and related expenditures. Conservation laws prevent the sale of unlicensed wild game meat, although it may be donated. Deer have often been bred in captivity as ornaments for parks, but only in the case of reindeer has through domesticating success. By 2012, some 25,000 tons of red deer were raised on farms in North America. The Sami of Scandinavia and the Kola Peninsula of Russia and other nomadic people of northern Asia use reindeer for food, clothing, and transport. Others are bred for hunting or selected based on the size of the antlers. The major deer producing countries are New Zealand. New Zealand is a market leader, and Ireland, Great Britain, Germany. The trade earns over 100 million annually for these countries. Automobile collisions with deer can impose a significant cost on the economy. In the US, about 1.5 million deer vehicle collisions occur each year. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, those accidents cause about 150 human deaths and 1.1 million in property damage annually. In Scotland, several roads, including the A82, A87, A835, have had significant enough problems with deer vehicles collisions that sets of vehicle-activated automatic warning signs have been installed along these roads. The skins have a peculiarly strong soft leather known as buckskin. There is nothing special about skins with the fur still on since the hair is brittle and soon falls off. The hooves and antlers are used for ornamental purposes, especially the antlers of the roe deer, which are utilized for making umbrella handles and for similar purposes. Antlers is often employed in making knife handles also. Among the lineage, the traditional Ulu woman's knife was made with an antler or ivory handle. In China, a traditional Chinese medicine is made from stag antler, and the antlers of certain species are eaten when in the velvet. Antlers can also be boiled down to release the protein gelatin, which is used as a topical treatment for skin irritation and is also used in cooking. Since the early 20th century, deer have become commonly thought of as pests in New Zealand due to a lack of predators on the island, causing population numbers to increase and begin encroaching on more populated areas. They compete with livestock for resources as well as cause excess erosion and wreak havoc on wild plant species and agriculture alike. They can also have an effect on the conservation efforts of the other planet and animal species.